look down at the clothes that you're wearing right now. Go to your closet, open your dresser, and see how many clothing items that you own from companies like H&M, Forever 21, or Zara. How many times have you felt that rush of excitement when you fill your online shopping cart, go to checkout, and realize that you can get everything that you want for $100? How many cheap t-shirts have you just thrown out after they've gone out of style? If you're like me, you've been found guilty of all of those things and probably more. Like it or not, we've all contributed to the production and consumption of what is known as fast fashion. But what you may not see is that the clothes that you buy have an impact that reaches far beyond the compliments you receive on your outfit or the likes you get on Instagram. That being said, I had no idea fast fashion even existed until I started asking the right questions. Questions like, how does Forever 21 always seem to have new clothes? How can this t-shirt only cost $6? I dove headfirst into researching the truth behind these manufacturers and their products. From published scientific articles to Netflix documentaries, the information is out there. We've just been blind to it. Today, I hope to leave you with a desire to avoid fast fashion, and I hope that you find a new motivation to become an educated consumer as you understand the harmful outcomes of the production and consumption of conveniently cheap and trendy clothing. Today, I'll briefly highlight just 3 of the many disastrous consequences of fast fashion, including the damages done to U.S. manufacturing, the environment, and the abuse of overseas workers. I'll begin our conversation today with the harm done to American manufacturing. Politicians and our leaders on television love to ramble on and on about the lack of American manufacturing jobs that pay a living wage. When people ask where all these good jobs have gone, the answer is simple. You cannot decently pay your factory workers while still producing a product that costs $5. According to research compiled and shared by the Northern California Public Radio, in the 1960s, roughly 95% of all clothing manufacturing was done in the United States. In the 1960s, the average American spent over 10% of their income on clothing while buying less than 25 garments per year. Now, those numbers have flipped. Now, less than 2% of all clothing is made in America. And yet, while the average citizen spends less than 3.5% of their income on clothing, they are buying approximately 70 garments per year. Compared to 50 years ago, that's nearly 3 times as many items for a fraction of the cost. U.S. factories have suffered as companies move their manufacturing processes overseas to keep up with increasing demands while maintaining profit margins. Today, only 150,000 apparel manufacturing jobs remain in the United States as we rely heavily on imports from foreign countries such as China and India. And as these companies move their factories out of the United States, they increase their profits by cutting corners and skimping on regulations of every kind, including environmental ones. Fast fashion is environmentally disastrous in a number of ways. According to Elizabeth Klein, a fast fashion researcher, overseas textile production requires nearly 145 million tons of coal and nearly 2 trillion gallons of water, producing 10% of total global emissions. Furthermore, the Huffington Post reports that the average American throws out 68 pounds of textiles per year. The faster you can get trendy new clothes, the faster you want to throw out the old ones. And keep in mind that most of these garments, especially the fast fashion ones, are made with inexpensive petroleum-based fibers like nylon and polyester that can take up to 80 years to decompose in landfills. Yet, even these concerns are not the worst of the environmental issues. The improper disposal of manufacturing waste and byproducts is arguably doing the most damage. In central India, manufacturers love to cut costs by disposing of toxic dye runoff in nearby rivers, lakes, and streams, contaminating the water supply. This not only makes local agriculture and fishing impossible, but it oftentimes ends up poisoning their very own employees who get their drinking water from these fresh sources. Between the microplastics and the chemical wastes, the fashion industry is the second largest polluter of clean water globally. Yet these companies don't stop harming their employees by polluting the water supply. Textile workers overseas are among the most abused and exploited populations globally. Fast fashion companies are able to produce new styles as often as every 2 weeks and do so in incredible volumes. How is this possible? Once again, the answer is simple. Companies subcontract manufacturing overseas to the lowest bidder, especially prioritizing arrangements with factories that have little to no concern for employee rights, benefits, and wages. According to the International Labor Organization, the average monthly wage for workers in nations such as Bangladesh, India, and Laos is approximately $100. These workers, 80% of which are women, and many of which are children, work for pennies a day in squalor with no protective rights, benefits, or safety oversight. This abhorrent abuse was highlighted by the tragic 2012 Dhaka factory fire and the 2013 Rana Plaza building collapse in Bangladesh. Between these two events, over 1,000 workers were killed and over 2,500 were injured. These catastrophes were directly caused by faulty wiring, poor construction, a lack of exit, and overcrowded conditions inside these factories. Human rights are being violated in the name of $12 shoes. The abuse of these workers has yet to be addressed on a global platform. Today, I use my platform to talk about the horrific economic, environmental, and most important, human costs of fast fashion production and consumption. I hope that in seeing just a brief overview of these few issues, you understand why it is imperative that we as responsible consumers avoid fast fashion companies. Fortunately, there are many ways for each one of us to make a difference and consume fashion in an ethical way. Firstly, you can just buy less. Don't purchase clothing that you don't really need. It's good for your wallet and the environment. Secondly, shop at a thrift store every now and then. It's an excellent way to once again save some money and reduce the amount of clothing going to waste. Thirdly, buy sustainably and consciously. When you decide to purchase new clothing, know where it comes from and how it's made. A quick Google search can ensure that you aren't contributing to the exploitation of young women. Finally, when you do want to get rid of some clothing, be smart about where you donate. Send your clothing to places where you know that they will be reused appropriately. Thank you.